Good evening, guys. A very good evening to all of you. Yes, I can see your chats. You all are excited, and sorry for the delay, guys. Good evening, everyone. Just show me your presence that you are able to hear me. Hello, Nikhil. Good evening, Vishal. Yes, now I can see your chat. Good evening, everyone. Let's have a short interaction with you all, and just tell me, guys, from where you all are. And I am live from Kurukshetra right now. Tell me from where you all are. Yes, thank you for the confirmation, guys. Good evening, everyone. Yes, good evening, Vijay, Yuvraj, Shiv, Ajay, Sagar, Aditya. Okay, as I can see, all are very excited. So, before starting the sessions, I would like to make you some announcements. There are, first of all, you all have to register for the course. The registration link is there in the description, and also our moderators will be putting in the chat. So please, for your attendance purpose, for everything, you need to register for the course. So guys, please make sure you register for the course. And we will be providing two certificates. One is for participation and second for the completion. For the participation certificate, you need to mark your attendance daily. And for completion certificate, you need to complete your assignments that will be provided by the sir, your trainer. All the assignments and materials will be posted on the community after the class. So please join that community group, and if you have any kind of doubts, issues, you can post it there. uh, yes, Chatu, you need to register. If you didn't get any registration mail. No, if you have already registered, you don't need to register it again. Just mark your attendance with the attendance form. It's there in the description, and also Isha is putting in the chat. So, community group is also there in the description and also will be there in the chat. Isha, can you please put the community group in the chat also? Okay. So, without any delay, let me introduce you to the trainer. Good evening, sir.
Hi everyone. Good evening, Josna.
Good evening. Yeah, guys, I can assure you he's a very
Am I
good
audible?
trainer. Yes, sir, you are audible. He is very good trainer.
Okay, thank you.
Uh, you will learn a lot from him. It's over to you, sir. You can start.
Sure. Hello everyone. So we'll start shortly in a while, and we'll start off with basics of Java, which starts with introduction to Java and object-oriented programming. Right.
Uh,
Okay.
Sorry, sir, to interrupt you. Guys, attendance form for
Yes.
attendance, please make sure you have registered for the course. You need to register for the course. To join the community, just register for the course and click on the link. You will be able to join. To whom it's showing 404 error, please make sure you have registered for the course. Okay, so you can start.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so hello everyone. Let's start with introduction to Java. Right. You guys already know that Java is a programming language which initially was developed by Sun Microsystems, and that happened in 1991. But later it got acquired by Oracle Corporation. Right. So the developers behind, I mean, the bright minds behind the development of Java were James Gosling and another guy named as Patrick Norton, right? So currently it is owned by Oracle, and as we know, billions of devices run on Java, the Android operating system that your mobile uses, that's on Java platform, right? So apart from that, Java is used for a lot of other applications like mobile applications, mostly Android apps, desktop applications. We even go for web development using Java. It's mostly backend development. So, application servers, games, connections to databases, and much more, right? So Java has a wide variety of usage. So there has to be some reasons which made Java so popular that it is being used by a lot of people and a lot of corporations for variety of purposes, right? So what we will do is we'll take a short while and discuss a few features of Java. Okay. So first a feature that comes to my mind is Java is a platform independent language. Now, what do I mean by platform independent languages? Java programs can run on any operating system. That means if I write a code in my Windows machine, right, and then I compile the code and then move it to my Linux environment, the code will run there as well. And it is not at all dependent upon the operating system, right? So this is one of the main features which makes Java so popular, right? Apart from that, Java is an object-oriented language. Yeah. So object-oriented language means we have collection of classes and objects, and being object-oriented language comes with a lot of powers, which we will discuss in a while, in a short while, right? So it's also a robust language. Now, what do I mean by robust languages? It is very reliable. It is developed in a way that it can detect errors, check for possible errors much earlier. That is why Java compiler can detect errors, it is the main feature which makes it robust. One of the things that is in Java is exception handling. Exception handling deals with catching the errors that the program produces uh, during the runtime of the program, right? It is one of the concepts in Java and one of the important concepts in Java which we will take care of later on. Another feature of Java is that it is multi-threading, right? Now, what do I mean by multi-threading is we can run multiple programs or multiple components simultaneously, or it allows concurrent execution of two or maybe more parts of a program. Okay. Now, to give you an example, you use Android phones, or maybe you use any operating system in your phone, or maybe even laptop. You don't run one application at once, right? Maybe you are working on your laptop in a text editor, typing out something. Meanwhile, you're also having a Chrome browser open so that you can Google things whenever required, right? So similarly, Java allows this multi-threading support. The next thing that we have already discussed is Java is portable, right? Uh, and that feature comes the with Java, as in we can write code in one machine and we can run it on any other machine, right? So this was a brief introduction to Java. Uh, do you guys have any questions regarding this? One of you, Shyam Upadhyay, asked why is Java independent but C++ is not. See, Java, when we compile Java, it produces byte code, right? Now that byte code will be same irrespective of whether you compile the program. If you compile your program in a OS machine, the bytecode generated will be same as if you compile your program in a Linux environment or a Mac OS environment. But the same feature is not available with other programming languages like C and C++. Okay. Any other questions regarding this? We can proceed to OOPS otherwise, object-oriented programming concepts. Yeah, guys, video is not clear because my camera is not functioning properly. I try to manage it with other camera, but it has some issues. From tomorrow, it will be sorted for sure. Don't worry about it. Fine. Then if this is done, let us move to OOPS, that is object-oriented programming concepts, right? We will discuss a few terms and meaning of those terms. Okay. Guys, please ignore the video quality for today. I'll try to fix it by tomorrow for sure, and you can have clear videos. Let that not be a distraction over here now. One of you asked if we know Java only, can we get a job? Well, yes, you can. Java doesn't support multiple inheritance, then why we call object-oriented programming? Well, Kevin, I got your name right. See, object-oriented programming does not revolve around multiple inheritance only. There are a lot of other things in object-oriented programming, and Java satisfies a lot of them. See, multiple inheritance is not directly possible in Java, but there's a workaround. You can implement it, but in a different way, not directly though, right? Is Java good or Python good for new learner? Actually, it does not depend. I mean, it's not. It does not matter at all. Either you learn Java or you learn Python. It's one and same. Why am I saying this? Is because as a fresher, if you are talking about learning, I assume you guys are freshers, and if you guys are fresher, you just need to start off. You can learn everything later on. I mean, let's say you start off with Java and then you switch roles or switch company, and there you saw that JavaScript is required or maybe Python is required. So you can learn that on the go. But if you start learning with one programming language, you'll be able to pick up the next one very quickly. Okay, so let's wrap up with the question and answer session as of now. We'll continue that, but afterwards in a while, right? And then let's start with OOP concepts. Right. So there are a few terms that are there in OOPS concepts. A few of them I'll read that out first. So one of them is class, another one is objects. You guys might have heard of it. Then there are data abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, message passing, dynamic binding, and all of, and etc. Right. So let's discuss the meaning of these terms first, and then we'll move on to the next topic that we have. So first few minutes will be theoretical, and then we'll move on to programming and all, right? So okay, the first term here is class. Now, what is a class? So you can say that say a class to be a user-defined data type. So it's a data type, but it is defined by users. That does not come predefined. Like if you create a class of person, what will you include there? Maybe the age, the occupation, the height, the weight, etc. Right? Similarly, if you create a class of, let's say, vehicles, what will be included there? The horsepower, the torque, fuel capacity, maximum speed, etc. Right? So both will be classes, but the definition, the internal definition will differ depending upon the usage. And that's why we say that class is a user-defined data type, right? Okay, so another term here is objects. Now, what do I mean by object is the objects represent the real life entities. Let's say if I define a class called person, then I will be one of the objects. You guys will be objects each, right? So let's say I define a class called maybe animal, then dog can be an object. If I define a class called say vehicle, then two-wheeler vehicle can be one object, four-wheeler vehicle can be another object, and so on. Okay, right. So another term here is data abstraction. Now, data abstraction is really essential and important feature of object-oriented programming, right? So, what do I mean by data abstraction, or what is meant by data abstraction is it provides only the information that is required and hides the background details. To explain that, let's take an example where someone is driving a car, right? So let's say I am driving a car or you are driving a car. What do we know is if I follow a certain procedure, the car will move forward. If I follow certain procedure, the car will stop. Right? What can we do is we can start the car, as in switch the engine on, then press the clutch and put the gear, and then release the accelerator and release the clutch and press the accelerator, and the car moves forward. That's what we know, but we don't know how exactly it is working. What is the exact mechanism going on behind the scenes, which is allowing the car to move forward on following these procedures, right? So that can be an example of a data abstraction. I hope you guys are getting it. But having said all of that, the concept of data abstraction will differ a little from person to person. Now, I, as someone who knows to drive only, knows that following certain procedure will move the car forward. But someone who is an automobile engineer, someone who is involved in the design and manufacturing of car, knows a lot of other details. So the object is same object, that is car, but different people will have different views of that. I will not be able to tell the intricacies there, but the other person might be able to tell the intricacies, how exactly it is working and so on, right?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, can you please share your screen?
Okay. It was theory only. Fine, then no problem. There's
No,
nothing on the
sir.
screen, right?
Yeah, it's not sharing.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, it's theory only. I'm not writing anything or doing something like that. Once I am done with theory, I'll move on to programming or writing something and share the screen. Then is that
Okay,
okay?
sir.
Yeah. Okay. So continuing from here, we are done with data abstraction, right? The next topic here will be encapsulation. Okay, so encapsulation, if we go by bookish definition or a formal definition, it means that we wrap up data in a single unit, right? And that is called encapsulation. So if you talk about Java or object-oriented programming, so the variables or data of a class, they are hidden from other classes, right? Hold on a second. Yeah, let me know guys if my screen is visible, if the whiteboard is visible or not. Let us draw some diagrams and then understand the topics. Okay, so as I was saying, encapsulation and all. So when we talk about encapsulation in Java or object-oriented programming languages, hold on a second. Yeah, so when we talk about encapsulation, so encapsulation is defined as wrapping up of data under single unit. So that means what we do is the variables of the data that we have, they are hidden from any other class. So let's say we have one class, right? So we have a class over here, and we have a few variables in here. Okay, we have a few variables in here. Let's say we have another class over here, and then we have a few variables there as well. Now this class, let's name it B, and this class, let's name it A. So the variables of A will not be visible by B. I mean, B cannot access the variable of A, right? Likewise, A cannot access the variables of B. Okay. So this also gives you an idea about the concept called data hiding. So what we are doing here is by defining variables inside the classes, we are hiding the data from other classes, and that could be for any reason, any purpose, right? So we can take a real life scenario as well over here to understand it better. Let me erase it first. So let's say there's an organization, and in that organization there are multiple, say sections, account section, sales section, say tech section, and all of that. So let's say in that organization, for some reason, hold on, yeah, in that organization for some reason the accounts section needs some data which is there with sales department, right? So let's say A1 employee of account needs some data which is there with sales department. Now A1 cannot directly go to sales department and pick the data or fetch the file and you know start working on it. A1 will need some representative of S1, sorry, of sales, which is say S1, to provide the data. Let's say A1 will ask for a data, any data it could be, maybe number of sales done or maybe comparison of sales done in the last few months and all of that. And S1 will first of all consider whether it is a legitimate request or not, like if the data can be provided or not. If the data can be provided, S1 will pass on the data, right? So in here, what's happening is, in here the data that sales department had. Let's say this is the data that the sales department had, is hidden from the accounts department or for any other department for that matter, right? It won't be freely accessible. So this is a real life example of data hiding. Okay. Now, another important concept here is inheritance. So, inheritance by the terminology, what do you understand by that is something being inherited, right? So, when we talk about literal meaning of inheritance, what do you understand by that? The literal meaning of inheritance. So, in inheritance, if we talk about in object-oriented programming, so it will be a capability of a class by which it can derive the properties and characteristic of other class. Now, let's understand that as well. Okay. So, let's say we have a class, say C1, and C1 has some characteristic or some properties, like it can do some tasks. And that, let's say we have another class C2. C2 has its own set of characteristics and properties, right? So if we are able to, inheritance is a property which enable the properties of C1 to be inherited by C2. What do I mean by that is the properties that C2 is inheriting, right? Let me denote it with a plus. So let's say these are the properties of C1 minus these are the properties of C2. So if C2 is inheriting from C1, what do I mean by that is the properties of C1 will also be a part of C2. Now C2 has got those properties which were the part of C1 only. Got it? So we're just trying to understand the meaning of a few terms over here, right? We won't go into depth because the terms that I'm explaining is an entire chapter in itself. There are a lot of intricacies, a lot of concepts inside that. So as of now, what we are trying to do is we are trying to cover up the basic meaning so that you guys have an idea of what Java is and what object-oriented programming is, the concepts related to them, right? Okay. So we have discussed what inheritance is, right? So what is the use of inheritance? The one use of inheritance which comes to my mind is, let's say there's one property which is a part of C1. So property means few lines of code, right? And if C2 can use it without writing the same code again, that means we are avoiding redundancy. That means we are avoiding repeated lines of code. If we have already written it over here, and if we are able to use it over here in C2 without any copy paste, without copying the lines from C1 to C2, then that's a great quality, right? We are able to use the property without writing the code. So that means less number of lines of code, less time utilization over there, and we are avoiding redundancy. We are making the program or the part of code reusable, right? So this was about inheritance. Now, the next thing that we need to discuss is there are a few more topics, a few more concepts: polymorphism and message passing. We have already discussed message passing. We'll discuss polymorphism first and then proceed. Now, polymorphism, if we go by literal meaning, is formed of two words, poly plus morph. And as you know, poly means many, right? And morphism means ability to exist in one form, more than one form. My bad. Ability to exist in more than one form. So anything which can exist in more than one form. Okay. So polymorphism will be of two words, poly and morph. Poly means many, and morph means form, right? So anything which can exist in more than one form can be said to have this polymorphism capability, right? So let's think of an example for that. Let's say, uh, what can be a suitable example for polymorphism? Any ideas? I'm looking into the chat. Any responses in that regard? Polymorphism. Okay, I don't see any answers over there. Polymorphism. Any simple example from real life? Which are the things from real life which you use in multiple forms? Let's say a water bottle, right? Let's take an example of a water bottle. Let me tell you what I might use it for, or what anyone might use it for. See, the main function of this will be to drink water, right? What other things can be done with the help of a water bottle? We can use it as a paperweight. No, let's say we are reading a book. I mean, we shouldn't actually be using it as a paperweight because it might drench the book or something. But let's say we are reading a book and we need to take a rest, take a break for a while, and we don't want the book to close so that we don't have to search where did we leave the book the last. So what we can do is we can keep the book open, right? And we can put the bottle over there so that it the pages don't turn away. This can be one example, though it was a vague example, but this can be one example of polymorphism. Okay. So now, since we are done with polymorphism, and this again is a separate chapter in itself. So again, we won't be covering it right away, but we will surely be covering this in the full time class. Right. Now, the next is message passing. So you remember the example that we discussed, the one where there's a accounts department and then there's a sales department, and then one of the employees of account department wants some data of sales department, right? And one of the representative of sales department gives the data to account department if the data is if the request is legitimate, right? So this is something we can call message passing. So A1 asked for the data. It asked if you can give the data or not. S1 verified that yeah, the person is allowed to get the data. There's no harm in sharing the data. And then S1 passed that data to A1. So this can be one of the examples of message passing. And this is one of the concepts of OOP as well, right? Now, how do we implement it in Java? Will be discussed later on. As I said, this is a theoretical class as of now. We'll go into deep later on. Right. So this brings me to the end of introduction to Java and introduction to object-oriented programming. The next thing that we are going to discuss is data types first, right? So how many of you are already familiar with any programming language? C, C++, Java, Python, anything? Anyone familiar with programming languages over here? Checking in the chat for your answers. Or is this the first programming language that you guys are going to learn? C and C++, C programming. Right, right. Okay, so if you guys are already familiar with programming languages, you already know what data types is, right? And why and where do we use it. But anyway, we'll still be discussing that. I just wanted to know how many of you guys are already familiar with it, right? Yeah, I see a lot of people know a lot of other programming languages as well, and that's great. Okay. Now, so starting off with data types, what do you understand by data types? Let's see your answers here as well. What do you understand by data types? Okay, that question is done already about the programming languages. Now, tell me what do you understand by data types? Any idea what data types are? Types of data, yeah, can be one of the answers. Describe the type of data in float, char. Yeah, okay. That are the types of data types, right? I'm talking about the meaning of data types. Mention the type of variables, user-defined data types, string, char, int. Okay, a lot of answers. A few of them are partially correct. A few of them are entirely correct. Okay, so if we go by a formal definition, right? So data types, if we talk about, is an attribute to something which is associated with a data. Let's say this is a piece of data, right? Now, if I give you this data, how will you identify? How will you interpret? Sorry, I stopped the screen sharing. Yeah. So let's say this is a type of data, right? And I provide you with this data. Now, how will you figure out what to do with this data? If I just give you data and you don't know what the data is, will you be able to figure out what to do with this? नहीं नहीं, based on the memory size, how can you do that? See, if I tell you that the data I have given is 4 and 5, let's say I tell you that the data that I have provided is 4 and 5, right? Then what can you figure out? What can you do with this data? Let me know in the chat. I'm seeing your answers. Is my screen not visible? Hold on, let me close it and share it again. Yeah, tell me if my screen is visible now. Is it visible now? Yeah, is my screen visible? A few of you guys are saying yes, a few of you are saying no. Okay, I'll wait for a second, let it stream. Yeah, it's visible, right? Okay, fine. So let's say I have these two data, right? 4 and 5. Will you be able to figure out what can you do with it? I'm not asking you to do something. What I am telling is these are the data that you have. Now figure out what can you do with it. So we have multiple options, right? What we can do is we can add them or we can subtract them. Okay? Apart from that, we can divide them or maybe multiply them. Now, these are basic operations that I'm telling you, but you can do a lot with the data that you have if these are the data that you have, right? Now, coming back to the definition of data type, so this is an attribute associated with a data which tells you how to interpret it and how to process it, right? Now, let's say I give you this data. Let's say I give you this Java as a data. Will you be able to do any of these operations? Will you be able to add, subtract, divide, or multiply them? Will it be possible? Let's say I give you two string data, two data, say Java and let's say program. Will you be able to add them, subtract them, or maybe multiply or divide them? Will that be possible? It won't be possible, right? Because they are string. You cannot add them or subtract them. How can you add a string or subtract a string, right? What you can do is maybe split them into two parts or maybe concatenate them, like join them in one single string. है ना? These are the operations that you can do. ठीक है? So that's what data type is. That's what the definition of data types is. Now, if we come back to the data types available in Java, Java has lots of data types. We'll discuss them one by one. And before I write them down and while I clear the screen, a few of them is, let's say we have integer data types, then we have float, then we have string types. They are not data types, they exist as classes, but it's possible to use strings as well over here, right? So we have integer, then we have floating point data types, right? Then we have character data type as well over here in Java. And then we have Boolean data types, right? So what do you understand by integer data types? There are four actually: integer, floating point, Boolean, and character. So what do you understand by integer data types? So integer data types are those type of data, I mean those kind of data types which can store integer numbers, right? Integers. Now what do I mean by integers? These numbers, for example, let's say minus 38 or maybe 0 or 1008 and numbers like these, right? Numbers which have no decimal point are integers, be it plus, be it minus, be it a positive integer, be it a negative integer, right? Similarly, what do I mean by floating point? The data which has decimals in them, say minus 1.38, suppose, right? Or 5.0, okay? Or maybe 8.9352 and so on. These are floating point data types. So floating point data, actually floating point data means the data which has, or the numbers which have decimals in them, right? Now, apart from that, there are characters. Now, what can be included in characters? So this can be a character, right? Only one single character. Let's say it can be a, it can be a full stop, it can be a dollar sign, right? It can be a hash symbol and so on, but only one character. Boolean is either true or false. That's all. That's what Boolean is, right? So these are the examples of data pertaining to each data type: integers, floating point, character, Boolean. Okay. Now, if there are data, we might need to store them. If we are talking about Java, right? Because without storing them, we cannot process them. We have to store them. So for storing them, we have data types. So the next topic that we'll be discussing is the data types which can help us store each of these data: integer data, floating point data, character data, or Boolean data, right? So let me clear this first, and then we will discuss the data types that we have. Now, for integers, say, what kind of data types that we have? We have four in integers, right? So that is byte, another one is short, another one is int, and the last one is long. Got it? So byte, short, int, and long, right? Now, you guys might be wondering maybe that if we have one data type, let's say we have long data type for storing integer numbers, then why do have we have the other three types? I mean, why do we have more than one types? If all we need to do is store integer number, and integer number can be stored in byte, then why do we have short, int, or long? Or if the integer number can be stored in short, why do we have byte, int, and long, right? But my point is, if we have one data type to store integer number, why do we need another three? Are you guys able to get my question? Any answers about this? Because of range. That's absolutely correct, Sam. Because of range. So to explain this, let's take an example, right? Let's say you want to drink water. What will you do is you will go to the kitchen, you will fetch a glass of water and then use it to drink it. So this is for one person, suppose. Now let's say there are a few friends in your house and all of you guys want to drink water. So one glass might not be sufficient. What you will do is you'll probably get a bigger container, right? Maybe a jug or something. Please ignore the terrible drawing. But anyway, let's say there are a few more people who want to drink water. Let's say there are four people. So one glass might not be sufficient, so you go and get a jug and then you use that. Now let's say there's a big party going on. There are, say, hundreds of people, tens hundreds of people there. So neither will this one glass be sufficient, neither will this jug be sufficient, right? What you might need to do there is you might need a yet another a bigger container, right? So maybe there's a large drum, a really large drum with liters of water in there, right? So this example will probably help you understand why do we need multiple data types for storing integers only. That's because of the range. Now coming to range, what do I mean by that is they can be okay. Let's take some examples. Let's say you want to store age of some person. What can be the maximum age of a person? Practically speaking, what can be the maximum age of a person? Maximum age of a person can be maybe 100 years, 120, 150. I don't think maximum age of a person will be 150 even. But let's say we assume safely that the maximum age of a person is 150, right? We'll take a few examples first, then we'll understand. Age, maximum age is 150. Okay. Now let's say you want to store population of a district, suppose, right? I'll write it in short, population of a district. So what could be the number? Maybe in lakhs, 10 lakhs. It might go in crores as well, right? Similarly, you want to store population of the entire state or the population of the entire country. So all of this data are integers, right? See, 150 is an integer. Population of a district will also be an integer. Population of state will be an integer. Population of district, sorry, the entire country will be an integer. My point is all of these are integers, but the number differs. 150 is comparatively really small number when we compare it with population of a district, which might be say 10 lakh, right? Similarly, it will be comparatively smaller number if we compare it with population of the entire country, which might be in 100 crores. So taking example of India, the population is somewhere around 135 crores, right? My point here is uh, the size differs, and with the size, the container will also have to differ. The example that we took about water and requirement of containers. So this byte variable that we have, yeah, byte variable, a byte data type that we have can store really small numbers. The range is a maximum of 127 from what I remember, right? And similarly, uh, the short variable has got a little more range. Let me clear out the screen a little. It has become a little bit messy. Okay, but we'll continue discussion. So byte variables that we have, byte data type that we have, those have really small range. So the maximum number that you can store is 127 from what I remember. You cannot store numbers beyond that. I mean, you will be able to store, but it will not behave properly. And that is a discussion for the next time. Similarly, short, if we talk about, it has a range of some 30,000 or something, 32,767 or something like that, right? So if you want to store numbers which are more than 32,767, right, there's a minimum value as well, minus 32,768 probably. And so if you want to store numbers which are suppose less than minus 32,768 or more than 32,767, you cannot use short. Similarly, if we talk about int has really, really high range compared to byte and short. Okay, so it is something. It is probably in some 100 crores plus. I mean, it will probably be 200 crores plus the range of int, right? It takes 4 bytes, so the range is really large. Similarly, if we talk about long, its range is a lot larger than int. Okay. So to give a clear picture, the size of byte is only 8 bits, right? Size of short is 16 bits. Similarly, size of int is 32 bits and size of long is 64 bits, right? So if you want to store a number which is really small, you can go for byte. You can also go for long, right? But that will be a wastage of memory. You will be using the entire 64-bit to store a really small number which could have been stored in 8 bits also. Got it? Are you able to understand, guys? Yeah. So, if we go back to the example that we had taken, let's say you want to store someone's age. Let's say you want to store your age. Your age will be in the range of 20 to 25. I'm assuming it can be more than 25. It can be less than 25, 20, doesn't matter. But anyway, you want to store suppose 20. Okay? And you chose long data type. Now, long data type will occupy 64 bits, right? But you will be using only 8 bits to store the number that you want to store. What about the remaining bits? These these bits are a waste. It's not at all useful over here. So it's like, let's say you are using a big drum to store water just for yourself, and that too for suppose 1 day or 1 hour. So you can store it, no doubt. Nobody will stop you, but it will be waste. It is not required. And I hope I made myself clear about the different data types that we have in integers and why do we need different data types, right? Okay. So I see from chat that there are a few responses and a few positive responses. I assume you guys have understood. Now let us move on to the next topic or the next type that we have, and that is floating point. Okay, I'll clear the screen a little so that we have space to write the next content. Now, floating point, as we discussed, are the data which have decimal in them, and they are numbers essentially. So numbers which with decimals, so decimal numbers in short. Example that we took were suppose 1.454 or 3.145678, something like that, right? Now, if we talk about floating point number or floating point data, we have two data types in Java to store them. And some of you might be knowing already, and they are float and double, right? Okay, float and double, yes, float, double. Now, the same question arises: if there is float already, right? If you already have float, why do we need double? So when we talk about decimals, one thing is the range that we can agree upon, that one will have larger range, another one will have smaller range. The other thing to note over here is the precision, the accuracy. So let's say uh, there's a number which is suppose something like this, 3.14126. Then that's all you need to store, right? Yeah. Now there's another number, let's say 3.14126. Say I'm continuing it with random digits, say 8901562448, something like that, right? So both are decimal numbers, but one has only 5 digits after decimal point. Another one has how many of them? 5, 9, 15 digits after decimal points, right? So the accuracy here will be different. है ना? Let's say you want to use the value of pi. What is the value of pi? It is 22 by 7, but when we go for decimal representation, how much it will be? It will be 3.14. That's what we have been using, but it will be 3.14126 and so on and so forth, right? But now let's say you want to use it just for calculating the area of a field, suppose area of a plot or something. Okay. Let's say you want to use the value of pi to calculate the area of a plot, right? And now let's say you need to calculate the value of pi and do some calculation, but that is for much more complex or maybe for much more important purpose. Uh, right? So there you will need much higher accuracy. You cannot just round it off. Let's say the answer that you have got is 22 point, suppose 57 something something something, and that is 100 digits after decimal. You cannot just round it off to 22.57. I mean, you can do it, but it might lead to unwanted results, right? So then you need data with high precision, high accuracy, and there double comes to rescue. Float will store the data, float will store similar type of data, that is decimal numbers, but the accuracy will be low, right? Now this reminds me of one of the articles that I read once, and that article was about some spaceship or some rocket, which after a few minutes or a few seconds of taking off blasted in midair. Why did it blast? When there were inquiries and investigation going on, it was found that the rocket or the spaceship blasted off because of calculation error, right? Because there was an error in calculation. So the storage that was used was comparatively smaller than was required. You imagine the entire rocket, which might have taken years to build, which might have taken a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of money, blasted off just because of this small error, right? Another example that I can think of is this YouTube counter that we have, right? We have a counter in YouTube, the view counter. So you remember there was a song called Gangnam Style, which was released a lot long back, probably even before 2012, 11, 10 or something like that, probably 10 or to 12 years back. When that song was released on YouTube, the view counter broke. What do I mean by the view counter broke? See, the view counter, hold on a second. Let me clear this a little. We're diverting off the topic, but we're not actually diverting off the topic. We're trying to understand why do we need data types and multiple data types for one single type of data, right? So let's say the maximum capacity of the YouTube counter was suppose 100 or suppose 1000. That song that I'm talking about exceeded the maximum capacity. Let's say it reached 1200. So since the maximum capacity was 1000 and it reached 1200, the data that was visible was not accurate. It went into negative. Now it cannot be negative views, right? The worst can be zero views. It cannot be negative views. Now that again was because of the use of a wrong data type. So the data type that was used had a lot smaller capacity than what was required, right? So these are the few examples to illustrate or to explain the fact that we actually need multiple data types for storing one type of data only, and that will depend upon the requirement that we have, right? So we are done with floating point. That gives you an idea about the requirement of precision, right? Now next is character. So character, we have this char data type where you can store characters, and for boolean we have boolean data type only. Now in here we do not require multiple data types because this single char data type and this single boolean data type is enough, more than enough to store any type of data that might come into character or boolean respectively, right? Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now, if this is done, we'll be moving on to the next point of discussion, next topic of discussion. Now, I'll be opening IntelliJ. IntelliJ is an IDE which is used for writing and executing Java code. Okay, I'll be opening IntelliJ and we'll be discussing about some. I'll be writing a basic program. I'll explain what that program is, the components that are there in the program, right? And then we'll move ahead. So let me stop sharing this screen. Let me share the IntelliJ screen for IntelliJ. So the screen, yeah. I hope IntelliJ is visible. I hope you can see that. Is it? No problem. Even if you have Eclipse, the program is gonna work perfectly fine and obviously completely same. So I just prefer to use IntelliJ for some reasons, but you might go for other IDEs as well. Is my screen visible now? There might be a delay. Yeah. Eclipse is better or this? Actually, both are good. I had used Eclipse long back. I was using it since my college days, but I recently I switched to IntelliJ, and I love both of them. A few of you cannot see my screen yet. Okay, I'll wait for a few more seconds. Let the video stream. Maybe it will start being visible to you guys as well. Okay. Yeah. So is it visible now? Yeah, I'll increase the font size. Don't worry, you'll be able to see. I'll increase the font size. Okay, so it's 20. Let's make it 30 so that you guys are able to see it clearly. Okay, so this thing that you see over here is, you can say it as a boilerplate code. Now, people who are already familiar with HTML and all other languages might understand what a boilerplate code is. So boilerplate code, if we understand in layman's term, is the code that will be required every time you write a program in that language, right? So every time you write a program in Java, you will need at least a class and a main function. Okay? So I'll get into the details about what each of them is. What is public? What is class? What is example? What is static? What is string args and all of that. Okay? But this is the boilerplate code. This is the least you will need. Okay? Well, I've shared the screen, guys, but if it is blurred, may because of internet problem, either from my end or your end. Swati, this is IntelliJ. Is VS Code good? Yes, Shiv, I had used VS Code as well for coding in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Even that is good. I love that as well. I mean, every IDE, popular IDE is obviously good, and that's the reason it is popular. Okay, now going back. Okay, going back to IntelliJ. This is the boilerplate code. Okay, so those of you who are already familiar with programming know that the first code that we write is hello world, and that's what we are going to do here as well. Why I'm doing that is I just want to explain a little bit of basics about Java programming. Okay, so we won't go much into detail because then what will happen is we will be diverting a lot from the main topic that we are going to discuss. As I had said, everything here except this hello world part is a boilerplate code. You will need that. This will be the least requirement for a Java program, right? So this is a line which will just print hello world. So let me run this, check the output, and then we will get into the details. Okay, we will also use data types and variables if required, right? So we know that Java is an object oriented language. That means everything has to be inside a class, be it a variable, be it a function, be it everything that has to be inside a class. And that is why, as you can see, we have a class which I have named it as an example because this is an example that I'm giving you guys, right? Now you can name it anything. You can name it ABC, you can name it test, you can name it XYZ, something, anything that you want to, right? So in here we have a class inside of which we have something which prints hello world on the screen. Now, is this clear? The first part about a class and all of that? Yeah. So here there's a class and the class's name is example. Inside of which is a main function. Now main function, if I tell you in layman's term, is the entry point of a program. So I have worked with C and I have worked with Java, I have worked with JavaScript and all of that. So from my knowledge and my experience, C, C++, and Java, for them the entry point is main function. I mean, there are a lot of other modern programming languages where you can start your program with anywhere. I've not worked extensively with JavaScript, so I won't be able to answer. But with C and C++ and Java, programming languages like these, main function is the entry point. So let's say you have a house and that is in an apartment, right? An apartment complex. So there's a main gate which you need to enter, after which you can navigate to your building and then to your house, right? So this main function serves the same purpose. So main function is the point where the execution of the program will start. In Java, I'm talking about. Everything that I'll be talking about from now on will be specifically related to Java, right? So this main function is the entry point. So say the main gate, right? After that, we have a single statement. Now, if I tell you what this statement does, you might have already figured it out, but this statement just prints whatever is inside of it, right? So we had hello comma world inside of it, and it has printed this hello comma world over here, right? Okay, so this was a short description of what it is. Now let me explain a little bit more about all of this. Okay, let me explain about what uh, class is, what public is, what is static, what is void. You already know what main is. Main is the name of the function, and that main function is the entry point. But this public that you see over here, this public is a keyword. This class is a keyword. Static is a keyword. Void is a keyword, right? So what a keyword is? A keyword is a word which has a specific meaning for the compiler, right? So if you talk about, let's say, English as a language or Hindi as a language, if I talk about, suppose, English, now go has a specific meaning. That means Jao, right? Similarly, Jao in Hindi has a specific meaning. Similarly, move from here, or words like move, words like run, words like eat and drink, all of them have specific meaning. Similar is the case with Java as well. Java is also a language. That's a programming language, is a different story. But Java is also a language. So a few of the words over here used in Java will have a specific meaning. That will mean specifically something to the compiler and nothing apart from that, right? So this public is a keyword, class is a keyword. But the example that you see over here is what we call as an identifier, right? So this is name given by the programmer, right? The name that is given by the programmer. Let's say I am the one writing this program, so I'll decide upon what the name is. If I change this name to suppose test or solution or PQR, something like that, even then it will work fine, right? Why did you give inverted comma to hello world? I'll explain that for the in a bit. Please hold on for a while, okay? What is string args? We'll go to that as well. We'll go to each and every component. I'll try to explain as elaborately as possible. Okay, right? Okay, so the next thing that we have is, see, the first thing that we are clear about is, let me recap a little. If I remove this statement, okay, I'll remove this statement. So this was what was there on the screen beforehand. Okay, this is what I had called it as a boilerplate code. This code will be there. This will be the least requirement to have a Java program. If you remove anything from here, it is no longer a Java program, or it can be an incomplete or a error-prone Java program, is what you can call it, right? Now, the next thing that we saw was we printed a statement. We wrote something, and that helped us to print that thing on the console screen or the terminal, right? The next thing that we discussed about was public, static, void, class, and we discussed that all of these are keywords. Okay? And what is the meaning of keyword? Keyword is something which has a specific meaning to the compiler, right? After that, we discussed what is this example. This example is what we call as an identifier. Now, identifier are the names that we give, that we as programmer or developers give to some specific parts of the program, right? That's what we had discussed. Now, this public, if we talk about, is an access specifier. The details will be discussed later on, but just for now, what you can understand is uh, it allows entry to everyone in simpler terms, like public places, like say parks, maybe cinema halls. Anyone is allowed. I mean, not cinema halls actually, say public parks where anyone is allowed. There's no restriction whatsoever. I mean, no restriction. You don't need to buy tickets. Anyone is allowed. But your house, if I talk about, right, that's not a public place. You cannot allow anyone from outside to enter the house, right? People you know, people you trust, people you have met before, only are allowed. Only will be allowed. Okay. So this public tells the compiler, the operating system, that you can access it from anywhere or anyone can access it. That's all that I am going to tell as of now. If we go deeper into it, you guys might get confused because there's uh, a lot of prerequisites that we need to cover before we get deep inside that, right? Okay, next keyword here is class. Now this class is a keyword which tells that this is a class. Example is a class, right? And where does this class start? This class starts from this curly bracket, right? And ends over here at this curly bracket, or the curly braces is what you can call it. Okay? So this was about public, class, and example, right? So next is we already know what public is. Now let us see what static is. Now understanding static might be a little bit difficult because we had to discuss objects and all of that. But what okay, let's try to understand it in simpler terms. Okay. So if something is static, what I have done is I have put static over here. If something is static, What does that mean is we do not need to create object. We do not, need objects. So uh, class has objects, right? So if I have declared something as static, to use that thing, I do not need an object. That's what the meaning is. So when we declare something as static, uh, it is stored in different part of memory, and we declare some, and we if we don't declare something as static, it will be stored in different part of the memory, right? Now this void is the return type. In short, what it does is it tells what is the function going to return, right? And the system.out.println is how you print something in Java. So that's all you need to remember as of now. See, initially you might need to memorize a few things, the definition of a few things, but later on, as you progress in the course and as you keep on working with Java, things will get clear. I can assure you of that, right? Can you explain why static is used? Jagan, static is used because we don't want to create objects, right? And we'll get into deeper later on. If I get into objects and object creation and use of static and non-static, it will divert the topic a lot. Okay, so as of now, just understand that we need static over here. Otherwise, this code is not gonna run. Okay. Okay. So I hope this is clear. Let me know in the chat, guys. I am waiting for your answers, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Yeah, are you guys able to understand? ARGS is the next topic that we have. ARGS is what we call as command line arguments, and I'll tell you what that is. Right? Okay, now let's move on to the next topic that we have, command line arguments. So command line arguments are used, and it has not gone obsolete. Like a lot of times we won't be using that, but it is, yeah. So it is used a lot of times. Now, what is meant by command line arguments? As of now, I'm using an IDE which is IntelliJ. So here we do not have command lines directly, but let me change the screen sharing for a while, and I'll tell you what command line argument would actually be. Uh, share. Let me share the entire screen as of now. Okay, so is my screen visible to you? So open the black console. So if you can see that, let me know. I'll wait for a while because usually it takes a little time to stream and for you guys to be able to see it. Yeah, I understand it might not be visible as of now, but it will be visible in a few seconds, right? Yeah, it started being visible to a few of you. Yes. Okay. So you know what this is called? This is a CMD. In short, that's what we call it, right? So it is a Windows command processor. Now, if we would not have used IDE, we would not have used IntelliJ. What might have happened is we would have used this particular thing to run our code, to compile our code, right? So I'll not give you the entire demonstration over here because we will ultimately be using IntelliJ or Eclipse or any other ID. But what might have been here is, let's say we are running a program and we are passing a few variables from here, sorry, a few values from here, right? So when we pass values from here, the values are passed even before the program, I mean, even before the entry point of the program, right? We pass the values to the program while the program starts running. Okay? Are you able to understand? Yeah, we are moving towards command line arguments, right? So we pass arguments from the command line, right? So where will we receive it? In general, what happens is when the program execution starts and we have variables where we store the values, we store them into variables. But even before the program execution starts, yeah, even before the program execution starts, we if we pass some values, where will we store it? That's where the string args. I'm sharing IntelliJ now, so that's where the string args comes into picture, right? Yeah. So as of now, what I'll do is I'll just take one argument, command line argument, and I'll show how it is working over here. Again, not getting into detail because this will require knowledge of arrays and all of that. Easily, what I'll do is I'll just print them so that you can see this. If you take a closer look at the program, we have no variables over here, right? We have not declared any variable. Okay. So what I'll be doing now is I'll be running the program, but in a different manner over here, right? So let's say I have passed 1, 2, and 3. If you can see it, I have opened a window where you can see program arguments. Can you see it? 1, 2, 3 is written over there. Yes, money. Yeah, that's absolutely right. We can give the input at runtime. While we are running the program, we provide the input. I mean, even before the control reaches the entry point of the program, we provide the input, right? Yeah, so you can see 1, 2, 3 is what I am passing. Okay, I click on OK and I run this program. So let us see what the output over here will be. So as you can see, the output is 1 and 2, right? We had passed 1, 2, and 3 when we started the execution of the program. Okay. So where it got stored is it got stored in the args variable. So this args over here is a variable and it's a string variable and it's actually an array, a string array, right? That's where we are storing and that's what command line argument is. The definition that was given in chat is actually completely correct. We give the input during the runtime. I mean, not actually during the runtime even. We pass the input as soon as the program execution starts, right? So this was another topic which we had to cover up, and so we are done with today's topics and today's discussion. See, it might get a little confusing to a few of you guys, maybe who are new to programming or maybe who are new to Java. Maybe they have coded earlier, they have familiarity with programming languages, but are new to Java. This might be a problem for you guys to understand in the first go, but believe me, if you keep on working on it, you'll obviously understand, right? Now, a few of you want me to explain this command line argument again, so no problem. Let's go through that as well. Okay, so command line arguments we saw that args argument that we have over here. Hold on a second. The args argument that we have over here is is where we store the command line arguments, right? Can anyone tell me the meaning? Those who already know, can anyone tell me the meaning of command line arguments? Yeah, so command line arguments is what we is the argument or are the data, right? Are the data that we will pass to the program when the program is invoked, when the program is called. Okay. General flow of the program will be we start the program, then we pass the value, then we provide the value. But in command line arguments, what we do is we pass the data, we pass the uh, values that we have while the program is invoked, right? So generally invoking and then passing the data. In here, what will happen is we pass them at the same time. Okay. So if we pass them at the same time, what will happen here is it will get stored in the args variable that we have over here. Okay. So that's what command line argument is, right? So in Java, the command line argument data is read as strings. It will get stored as string, right? And you can convert it to other types and all of that in later classes. Obviously, is a lot of things to discuss over here. Yeah, I hope you guys are able to understand. Yeah, so this brings us to the end of the session, and we'll quickly, recap what we discussed today. The first thing that we started off with introduction to Java, right? So introduction to Java, we got to know who were the bright minds behind Java programming language, who started it and who currently owns it, right? Oracle is the one who owns it. Then we discussed about a few concepts of object oriented programming. We discussed a few terms that are used in object oriented programming, and we discussed what are the meaning of them. We tried to understand that with the help of real life scenarios, right? Yeah. Then the next thing that we discussed was the data types, the different types of data types that we have, and the different, you know, different ways we can store the data in Java. Like let's say for integer, we have multiple data types. So we even understood why do we need multiple data types when we already have one data type, right? And so on. Similarly, for floating point, we understood the same. Then next, we also discussed about what might happen if we use wrong data types. We took examples, real life examples from the past, which led to a lot of problems when wrong data type was used. Then we moved on to command line arguments. We discussed what are they. We also discussed where do they get stored and how we use it. Apart from all of this, we also discussed the boilerplate code that is required uh, to write a Java program. And what do we mean by boilerplate code is the least amount of code in here that will be required. In layman's term, if you want to explain to someone who does not know anything about programming, what you can say is boilerplate code is the least amount of code that will be required to write a Java program, right? Which will include the definition of a class, which will include at least one function, and that has to be main function. Okay? So this is what we had discussed today. If you guys have any questions, you may ask. I'm reading your messages in chat, and I'll be very happy to answer. Any questions, guys, regarding whatever we have discussed? How to use GitHub? That's a separate topic in itself, Bhavesh. We'll see what we can do to explain you. As of now, what you can do is you can go through a few videos freely available on YouTube. You'll be able to understand. Sherry, you live in US and you do not understand how to go about enrolling. Okay, Isha, will you be able to help him? Yes, Abhijit, I'll try to, see, beginners, that means you will probably take a little bit of time to go up the flow, but that will eventually get clear. I understand that. We'll anyway try to be more elaborate the next time, but keep giving us feedback that way. Why did you give double quotes between ARGs? Okay, to answer that, that is for giving a space. So double quotes, when you give double quotes in system.out.println, that will give a space in between, right? So if I remove this double quote that I have, let's remove this and see what is the output. Uh, Actually, that's a lot deeper than just space. See, first thing that it will do is it will give a space, right? If I remove it now, let's remove this and see. I'll just put a plus over here. Let me run this code now and see what is the output. See, it is 1, 2. Same output, but without spaces, right? So that's what double quote is used for. Why did we get 1 space 2 in the output? That's because, Swati, we passed 1 comma 2 as the command line argument. Where I am from, originally from Bihar, but I am in Odisha right now. Okay, any other questions that you guys have? Right. So if why use plus? Plus is used to join two strings. That's why. We'll go into detail as we proceed with the classes. We'll go into detail. Don't worry about it. Sir, we can run Java program in Bash. Bash is, in my knowledge, used in Linux, right? Yes, you can do that. Is there a specific place to open and end braces as it is seen? Yes, actually. See, whatever you put inside braces becomes a part of that. So if I take an example, this is a brace that is opening here, right? Similarly, one brace is closing at line number 5. So everything between that is a part of this thing. And what is this thing? It is a class. What is the name of this class? It is an example class. Similarly, if I take another example, there's one brace which is opening at line number 2, another one which is closing at line number 4. So everything in between that, which happens to be just one line in this program, is a part of this main function. So that's what it tells you. Okay? Why we use threading in the Java to run multiple application at once? The shortest answer possible. That's what you can do with threading. Multi-threading is what you mean. Sorry, what you mean by, right? नहीं To run bash mainly we have to create GitHub account and have to create one repository. नहीं, see, bash and GitHub are entirely different things. GitHub is where most people use for hosting their code and all, right? Bash is like command line, command prompt. The one that we have in Windows called CMD is what is the equivalent of bash in Linux, right? Bash is what we call as shell scripting, SHELL, shell scripting. What is encapsulation? Okay, so going by the definition, it is wrapping up of data into one single unit, right? So what it will do is it will bind the code and the data into one unit over here. Just say the example that we had discussed, the example of a company having different sectors, I mean different sections, account, sales, and all. That's what you can understand for encapsulation. That's correct, money. Binding variable and methods under a single entity, right? What is the use of super keyword? That's a part of inheritance actually. We will discuss it, but not now. But in short, super keyword can be used for multiple purposes. Let's say you have a parent class and then you have a subclass, and then you obviously will be creating object of subclass. So then for accessing the parent class objects, sorry, parent class function or variable, you can use super. You can also use super keyword for passing the argument to super class. Okay, so I assume that's all for now. Anything regarding the course content and all, you can find it on the website. Isha has been sharing links about that. You can check it there as well, right? So with all that, we are coming to the end of this session for today. We'll have another session tomorrow where we will discuss a few more topics, right? So with that, stopping the screen share and ending the session as of now. It was really a great session. Thank you for being such a great audience, guys. Really appreciate it. Okay, anything that we have, we can discuss tomorrow. Okay, there's another question coming. How program is affected when void is used and when not used? Void is mainly is used with functions. So the program will be affected in the sense that if you use void, you cannot return any value. In detail we'll discuss when we will go for function. Also, if you don't use void, you have to return a value. That's what the basic difference will be here. We can run Java program in Ubuntu. Yeah, sure, you can do that. Fine. So ending the session for now. We'll see you guys tomorrow. I really enjoyed teaching you guys. Okay. uh, Having all said, let's wrap up the session. Good night, everyone. Take care. Until the next time.